Sydney is facing a once-in-50-year flood emergency tonight. Evacuation orders are in place, thousands of people on alert, with sections of suburbs around the Hawkesbury and Nepean Rivers expected to go under. Adding to the crisis, Warragamba Dam is spilling enormous amounts of water, with fears of flooding not seen since the 1960s. We have comprehensive coverage tonight from our team of reporters in the worst affected regions. Robert OVADIA begins our coverage.
It comes with the territory, quite literally, if you live on a floodplain like Windsor. The Hawkesbury is raging at speed and carrying with it debris that was on land before the river surged. The Windsor Bridge was closed. Still, some raced across, knowing it might be their last chance before water swallows the lot.
I just think it'll be funny if the new bridge goes under because they just built it and it was supposed to be to stop the flood.
It is a spectacle for those who have never experienced it.
Really weird, and I just never seen this much water.
And for those who have.
Of all the floods that I've seen here, this is the fastest flowing that I've seen.
This is why prolific rainfall combining with a forced spill upstream from Warragamba, churning out roughly 100 Olympic swimming pools every minute.
The dam did spill over the last time 5 years ago, but obviously when it's a 1-in-50-year event in terms of the amount of rainfall and the sustained rainfall, it has a huge impact.
This is Mel and Blake's first home. Their backyard is flooded. They are salvaging what they can.
Comparing it to the 88 flood, which hit the top of our garage, so we're kind of hoping that we don't get the water into the house at this point.
Shanes Park, midway between Windsor and Penrith, is a disaster zone. Rescues were needed here, inflatable boats going up and down streets to pull people from their homes.
I'm so grateful, so grateful. I was really worried about what I was going to do.
Inside the home Lara Pengilly left behind, the water is still rising.
Yeah, it's pretty devastating.
The SES knows its work is not over.
We have at least about 30 odd houses along this street here that we're just checking on, making sure everyone's okay.
Large swathes of Pitt-town and surrounding areas are also underwater. A police car is too at Freeman's Reach. Officers managed to escape. One man winched off a roof by police, and holiday homes at Sackville have submerged, while the Nepean is rising rapidly too, anticipating the worst flooding here in half a century.
I've lived here for 31 years and I've never ever seen it this high.
Those suburbs orbiting Penrith, Emu Plains, Jamison Town, are all in danger.
Potentially, it could result in between 3,000 and 4,000 people being asked to evacuate over the next few days.
Disaster relief is now available from the federal government.
We are extending the Australian disaster payments to those in the affected areas.
And help is also coming from interstate. Queensland's SES volunteers are on the way. Rain is continuing to tumble along the New South Wales coastline all the way to the border.
It's one of the biggest floods that we're likely to see for a very long time.
The Parramatta River is fortunate though, unaffected by Warragamba. The waterline today is lower than yesterday. This is hardly a once-in-a-100-year flood. The La Nina climate cycle will ensure flooding like this along the Parramatta River happens every few years. But when that historic flood does arrive, critics of the government suggest this specific spot will be a disaster. The Powerhouse Museum will be relocated on the river's banks. In 1988, the waterline peaked at least 4 metres higher than today.
There is the great potential for serious flooding through this area, and in particular on the museum site.
It was a dumb decision in 2014 to put a museum on this site.
Picton has largely been spared. Flooding 5 years ago crippled the southwestern town. This time, sandbagging has not been needed, at least for now.
You worry all the time, and you put long hours and a lot of time into your business, and naturally you don't want it to go underwater.
But amid the gloom, some moments of levity. At Windsor, the SES responded urgently to cries for help, discovering their victim was not a person, rather a goat. And if you visited the tram sheds at Glebe today, you might have noted the irony. And where I am right now is probably the most appropriately named road in all of Sydney. This is River Road. in Emu Plains. You can see it has essentially become a river. It's the subject of evacuation warnings for west of Penrith. People who were supposed to have evacuated at 4:30 this afternoon. That's 90 minutes ago now. And also evacuation orders for 9:30 p.m. for people west of Jamison Town. Now, it's called River Road because it is adjacent to the Nepean River. You take a glance out here, you see just how fast that water is going. Now, the problem for the Nepean and also the Hawkesbury area around Windsor and Richmond is that water is going to keep on flowing as water continues to tumble into Warragamba from that massive catchment area.
Robert Ovadia at saturated Emu Plains, thank you. Let's go to Tom Hartley now at Penrith, where an evacuation order is in place. Tom, are locals leaving as requested?
Well, Mark, many of them are, but others are choosing to stay put. The SES is here at the moment. They've started to door knock residents right along the street, checking which ones are inundated, which homes are most at risk. You can see a few of them getting around now to see who is in any danger. So there are a total of 19 evacuation orders current across New South Wales, with residents in this part of the world told to get out by no later than 9 o'clock because it could be too dangerous after then for authorities to get in. Now, there are many other streets across New South Wales which resemble scenes like this that aren't subject to evacuation orders. The residents in those streets are being told by authorities, if you do feel like it is getting unsafe, evacuate while you can, move to higher grounds, because as the waters keep rising, so too does the risk factor.
Good advice, Tom. Tom Hartley at Penrith, thank you. The mid-north coast has been declared a natural disaster zone, with the flooding there now labelled a once-in-a-century event. While the declaration will mean compensation flows much faster, there is a dire warning tonight that more treacherous weather is on the way.
A winch from an RFS helicopter, the only way out for stranded and desperate residents in Koladong near Taree. The surging waters at Port Macquarie breaking hearts.
Oh.
This is what's left of the iconic Whalebone restaurant. From furniture to food, everything is ruined. 30 staff out of work, $500,000 damage with no insurance.
Because I recently did a renovation, I spent $300,000 on the kitchen, just alone.
Now ranked a once-in-a-century flood event, the Weather Bureau is warning the next 2 days could see up to 4 times the March monthly rainfall.
You have already experienced some very dangerous conditions and they are going to be treacherous yet again.
The last 2 days have been hard enough and emotions are catching up.
I'm sad.
Yeah. Tracia and Peter owned the home, ripped off its foundations and sent floating down the Manning River.
It just lifted off its footings and went off down the hill.
But it's the cattle that were washed off their paddock which really hurts.
They all got washed away.
192
animals, big and small.
While some cattle are barely keeping their heads above water, locals are doing everything they can to rescue livestock wherever they are. Some taking shelter on the veranda.
Come back away from the gate.
Helping round them up is Joshua Edge. He was living in the house that floated away.
Everything Sarah and I worked hard for our whole lives was there. Like, we've just lost everything, right down to my baby photos.
He was supposed to get married yesterday, but he still can't get to his fiancée, who's trapped in Taree.
She's amazing. She's the love of my life. I love her dearly.
Miss you, and I can't wait, to see you and give you a big hug and a kiss.
For those whose homes haven't been completely destroyed or washed away down the river, this is the kind of scene that they'll be faced with when they're able to return. A clean-up that could take months.
I just pinch myself to sort of try and wake myself up from this nightmare.
Now, this should give you some indication of just how powerful and damaging these floodwaters have been. That's the Manning River just there, and at its height, it took all these trees and debris into this person's pool. If we have a look here at this clothesline, that was completely submerged yesterday morning, and this person's house, who we are standing on, you can see the water line just here, which is several metres above where it is now. They're still not out of the woods, but a massive clean-up ahead. Now, I can also tell you that dozens of schools in the mid-north coast will be closed tomorrow. Best to check with the Education Department about which they are. I can also tell you that there is sadly no update on that missing bodyboarder who disappeared in the waves at Park Beach at Coffs Harbour yesterday afternoon. Mark.
OK, Tom Saker on the Mid-North Coast. Thank you. Now, the floods are yet to peak, but they've already sparked a stoush between two state ministers over water levels in Warragamba Dam. With fears thousands of homes could be flooded in Sydney's west, the Emergency Services Minister has taken aim at a colleague, claiming more water should have been released sooner.
A potentially deadly torrent heads towards thousands of homes. Almost one Sydney harbour's worth of water released from Warragamba just today. Not nearly enough. The rainfall relentless. 1,500 gigalitres set to flow in. That's 75% of its storage capacity. The worry, where will it go?
I don't think you need to be a road scholar to work out that a litre of water in the dam today is a litre of water that will flood somebody's house tomorrow.
Taking aim at the Water Minister, David Elliott says more water should have been let out earlier.
This weather pattern has been forming for quite some time. We knew it was coming more than 6 months ago.
Given the rainfall that we're experiencing in the next few days, you would have had to have reduced the capacity of the dam to around 20 or 25%, which just wouldn't have been feasible.
The fear is this.
Floodwaters spread quickly across a vast area.
Across the floodplain, which takes in the Hawkesbury, Penrith, Blacktown, filling the basin where 150,000 people live like a bathtub. It would be another catastrophe for the history books.
So we've got a lot of historical intelligence that we draw on in relation to these floods.
Still, the population on the floodplain has exploded. Brand new suburbs built. Experts say they would be left stranded with nowhere near enough evacuation routes. And through the heart of the community, no stranger to floods, this is the Windsor Bridge. Water now covering half of it. And as we go to air tonight, a man and a woman have been rescued from the rooftop of one of those buildings across the way, completely swamped. The water has reached the rooftop. Now, it's quite the spectacle here. You can hear the rescue chopper circling above locals. They can do little but watch as the Hawkesbury River continues to rise. For some of them, it is a spectacle, but for others, they remember those devastating and deadly floods back in 1978, and it is an anxious sight.
It's an extraordinary sight, Sarina. Thank you. Now, power is still out in Chester Hill as residents try to mop up from that ferocious mini tornado which tore through yesterday. Tarpaulins are covering roofs across the suburb with dozens of homes badly damaged. Fire and rescue crews have been helping residents patch up their properties as the rain continues. For the very latest, I'm now joined by SES Commissioner Carleen York. Commissioner, thanks for your time. This is one hell of a battle. Do you have all the resources you need?
We have all the resources, so we're working very strongly with our partner agencies, Rural Fire Service, Fire and Rescue, Police and other emergency services organisations. But we have reached out to other states to get some experts, flood rescue technicians, so we've got 85 coming in, landing as we speak from Queensland and South Australia, and a request for 40 more from Victoria. So we're confident we've got the resources in place for such a significant event.
Now, thousands of residents may need to evacuate in the coming hours from Sydney's west. How do you manage that?
Well, we try and put the warnings out as quickly as possible. So tonight I think we're evacuating about 1,000 residents before 9 p.m. The water has risen much faster than had been expected and predicted by the Bureau, but we're out door knocking, we're putting out lots of messaging, and I really invite the community to look at our SES website and also the BOMS website for up-to-date information, because tomorrow we're anticipating that the waters will continue to rise and put other properties at risk and other lives at risk. So we want to make sure that people get out and look after themselves, their property, their animals, and make some decisions now before it's 2 o'clock in the morning and they have to do it in the darkness.
And Commissioner, what do you do if not everyone wants to leave?
Well, I would encourage people to leave. The difficulty is with some of the area within the Hawkesbury Nepean floodplain is the roads will get cut before their houses get inundated. So I want them to get out and evacuate, go to friends, family or evacuation centres where we can look after them. But it does put my volunteers and other emergency services agencies at risk when we have to go in and get them. So I want them to be proactive, to listen to our messaging, to get out as quickly as they can. It's better to get out out and realise, oh, I didn't need to, than actually be calling 000 because your life is under threat.
Commissioner, we appreciate your time. We wish you and your crews the very best in the days ahead.
Thank you very much.
Let's get the very latest on the weather now. Angie, hundreds of millimetres have fallen across New South Wales and the totals are still climbing.
Mark, we're looking at more than 400 millimetres on the mid-north coast so far. Around Sydney, more than 200 millimetres. We know this has been going on for a couple of days now, but I want to highlight the 24 hours until 9 a.m. this morning. So in one day alone, Picton has recorded 198 millimetres, Katoomba 168, Warragamba 157, Hornsby 120 and 110 in the city. For some perspective, the previous daily March record for the city was 72 millimetres, set only back in 2019. Looking ahead, we will see a continuation of this deluge on already sodden catchments in the east. That is a serious flooding concern pretty much from border to border. You'll also notice the warning zone today pushes further inland. Some pockets of the southern tablelands have also recorded falls of 100 millimetres, and tomorrow the northwest here can also expect heavy falls. So what's making this so significant? We have a low pressure trough lying along the coast that's generating the rain. We also have a high to the south. The pressure gradient between the two is driving the wet weather, damaging winds and big surf onto the coast. And it's a holding pattern, so the rain continues. This is the future radar for tonight and the next 2 days around Sydney. A lot of red, so a lot more rain on the way. I'll take you through the detailed 7-day forecast soon, Mark.
Yeah, not what we want to see. Angie, thank you. Welcome back. These are live pictures from the 7 News chopper currently over Windsor Bridge, or what you can see of it. As you can tell, half the bridge is now underwater, with the river still rising. Truly extraordinary scenes in Sydney's west this evening. Evacuation orders are in place for parts of Western Sydney. Residents in sections of Penrith, Jamison Town and Mulgoa have been told to leave as the waters rise. The Windsor Bridge is being swamped as we go to air. Emergency crews have just had to rescue a man and a woman from one of the properties across the river.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. Yeah, the police and the man very good for us. They're doing a good job.
What happened?
Flooding, we can't get out from the property.
You were saved from a roof?
Yeah. We are in the roof,
4,000 people have been warned they may need to leave their homes. The flooding is only expected to get worse in the coming days. Tonight's top story on 7 News, flooding evacuations in Western Sydney. Residents in parts of Penrith, Jamison Town and Mulgoa have been told to leave as the floodwaters rise. The SES are going door to door with thousands of people impacted. At Windsor, the bridge has flooded. Emergency crews rescued a man and a woman from the roof of their home. So much now hinges on the weather. With the latest, here's Angie.
Thank you, Mark. It's not good news. More heavy falls are on the way, especially across the mid-north coast and northern rivers. And Sydney could almost double the totals already recorded. The constant rain kept temperatures on the cooler side. Just 1 degree separated the low from the high in the CBD. Since 9 a.m. today, rainfall around Sydney has been constant but much lighter. Another 80 millimetres around the Blue Mountains, closer to 10 on the coastal fringe. And again, tops hovered around 19 or 20 degrees. This is the statewide rainfall tally as it stands. In red here, the mid-north coast, 400 millimetres plus. In Sydney, 200 millimetres plus. The driving force is a high in the south and a trough in the east. In between, lots of rain, wind and big swell being pushed onto the coast. And these pockets in yellow highlight areas still expecting heavy rain tonight and tomorrow. Zooming in on the chart for tomorrow, there's that separate trough developing, approaching from the west. So during tomorrow and Tuesday, that system will start to interact with the moisture-laden air in the east, causing that wet weather to really spread. To the capitals, Brisbane, rain at times, just 30 to 40 millimetres. Canberra expecting lighter showers, 10 to 20 millimetres. Very light showers for Melbourne, and it will be fine for the other southern capitals. Statewide tomorrow, more heavy rain for the northern rivers and mid-north coast. Another 100 millimetres or more forecast for Coffs Harbour, but western parts of the state come into the picture as well. 50 to 90 millimetres for those inland districts. coasts, 60 millimetres also possible around Wollongong, totals easing up considerably further south. The metro region is in for another soaking tomorrow, so heavier falls than we recorded today, but not as heavy as yesterday. So we could see around 50 or 60 millimetres in the gauge, tops around 19 or 20 degrees. On the water, moderate easterly winds at first, then northeasterlies reaching 30 knots by late evening. Those strong winds span the entire coastline, battering beaches, along with that rain and big surf. So wet and wild for the CBD once again. Constant rain, a temperature range of 19 to 21. Looking ahead, Tuesday brings even heavier totals, 70 millimetres or more. Then suddenly on Wednesday, a dramatic change, blue skies and summer-like temperatures of 30 degrees. But we certainly have a long way to go until Wednesday, Mark.
Yeah, it's going to be a long week. Angie, thank you.